Hi, I'm Benjamin Bishop, pastry chef, and welcome to Sweet Precision, the show where I'm going to teach you using simplistic ingredients to make extraordinary desserts. So today we're going to be making Cheesecake Petit Fours. So we'll be making a cheesecake batter and baking that off and then making into bite-sized pieces for you and your company. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is going to be making the crust, and we have some ground up, these are actually vanilla wafers, and some melted butter. We're going to be mixing that all together to make a crust and then put that into the oven. You want to make sure that when you are mixing up your crumbs that you are getting them all covered with the butter. If you have any dry spots, that will be where the crust fails on you when you are trying to cut the cheesecakes. So everything's mixed up here, and we have a prepared pan with parchment paper. We're just doing a small batch. I'm going to be putting this right on top, and we want to press this down. So you want to have this a nice even layer, and that way every bite is the same when you are making it. So again, we're going to be putting this together into the oven. The oven's going to be at 350 degrees, and probably put this in for about 10 minutes, just until the crust gets toasted and will stay together. The butter will actually work with the crumbs and become one solid mass when we're done. Then we're going to be moving on to our cheesecake batter on top of that. So with that, we're going to be putting this into the oven, and we'll be right back. And we're back. So the cheesecake crust is in the oven, and we're going to get back to making the batter here. So we have room temperature cream cheese. Now, everything that you have that you're going to be making for the cheesecake batter, make sure it's at room temperature, including the eggs, the sour cream, the sugar should be already at room temperature, and the cream cheese. It's going to give you a softer, smoother, without chunks batter. So we're going to be putting the cream cheese and sugar into the mixing bowl first, and those are going to be creamed together before we add any other ingredients. So put this onto the mixer, and when you are mixing, if you don't have a stand mixer, that's totally fine. If you have a handheld mixer, that's fine too. You want something that has some kind of power to it though. You don't necessarily want to use your hands, or else you'll come out with a chunky batter. So here we're just using a stand mixer, and we're going to be mixing that up probably for just a couple minutes until it's a nice smooth mixture together. We're using a medium speed here, and again, it's just to bring those two ingredients together. All right, so the cream cheese and sugar are together. Going to add in the sour cream. And again, just mixing that until everything has been combined. When you are mixing this up, you never really want to put this on a high speed. You don't want to incorporate air. Air will certainly give you more of a volume, but in this case, we want something that's really nice and dense. It's going to give you a better mouthfeel and also a better product when you're done making the Petit Fours. So mixing these three ingredients. Simple as that. Now the eggs are going to be going in. I typically do this one at a time and scraping throughout, because when you add eggs, you'll start to have them kind of separate from the batter. So we just want to make sure that everything has a nice mix together. So one at a time. Now the second one, and here is where I'm going to stop this just to scrape down and get it all the way down to the bottom. You want to make sure that everything is mixed in one homogeneous mixture. You really don't have to mix this too terribly long. We just want to make sure that those eggs are broken up and throughout the entire mix. At this point, have a little bit of vanilla extract. Add that in. You can mix any type of flavoring in there that you want. I'm using vanilla in this respect just because we're going to be using some raspberry jam for the top. But you can get wild, you can put lavender extract in there, you can do almond, anything that you really are thinking that might fit your palate. So, here is our mixture, scraping everything off. If you heard one of my past episodes, I always go by what my grandmother taught me, that you want to scrape off everything, because if you have just a little bit left over on the beater, that's another bite for somebody else. So make sure that you have all the bites. All right, so everything is mixed up. It's a nice smooth mixture, and it's ready to go. The crust is in the oven, and we can get that out of the oven to pour this in and then bake it off. So we'll be right back and get that ready for you. Okay, and we're back. So the crust is ready for us to put the batter in. So I'm gonna get out of the oven really quick. And I have a cloth down because we're working on granite here. We certainly don't want to crack that from the heat. So the crust is ready. Typically I would wait maybe a minute or so for this to calm down, but we really don't need to since it's already set up. And it'll help the cheesecake to start to bake right away. So you see how smooth the cheesecake batter is. This is what we're looking for, and because we had this at room temperature, it's staying nice and smooth for us while we are getting it prepared into the pan. We want to make sure that it's all the way out to the corners, and I'm using a quarter sheet pan here. Once this bakes off, this will be a nice squared off area in order to make the petit fours for us. So have everything out, and what I typically do is just take the corners of this and making sure that bubbles are out. We want to just kind of jostle it a little bit. There are tiny bubbles that are coming out. Those bubbles can expand while into the oven, so we don't want that. We want a nice smooth surface when we're going to be doing the petit fours. So that's all done. This also helps to level everything out. So we have this a nice level area for us to work on. What we're going to do next here is put this back into the oven. It's probably, because this is so thin, probably going to be about 25 to 30 minutes in order to bake. I say this to everybody when I'm teaching. We want to make sure that we're not going by, if there's a recipe that says 20 minutes or 25 minutes, it's kind of a generalization. You have to know your oven a lot more if it's going to take a little bit more or a little less. So we're going to check this every so often and make sure that it's baked off. And you know a cheesecake is baked when it's like a little gelatinous. It looks dry, the skin will be looking dry on top, and if you touch it ever so slightly, it kind of bounces back. That's when a cheesecake is done. You don't want to make this where it's brown. We don't want to have that as an undercoat when we put on the decoration, and that'll be coming up next. So again, we're going to put this into the oven, make sure that it's baked off. Once it's baked off, then we're going to leave it at room temperature just to have it cool, and then we'll put that into the refrigerator at least about 2 hours. You can leave it overnight, and that'll be even better, just to make sure that it's nice and chilled for us to do the decoration, and that'll be coming up next. So let me put this into the oven, and we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. So what I did is, again, we wanted to chill that cheesecake. So everything is chilled right here. And I did take the liberty to trim off the sides. It's gonna be easier to get this out of the pan. So I will show you how I did that in 1 second, but I'm gonna pull this off onto a cutting board. I do have parchment paper that's still underneath there. That's just to give a barrier, and we'll peel that off when we're actually gonna be plating this up. So the next step we're going to be doing is taking some raspberry jam. Now this is something simple. I don't necessarily need to be making this from scratch. You don't either. And I just got some raspberry jam from the store, and we're going to be putting this on top. What's gonna happen here is we're just looking for a nice smooth top layer. We don't wanna have too much because how soft this is, we don't want that to run off after we're going to be cutting these into smaller squares. So I'm going to just start out putting a little bit on top, and an angled palette knife like this is certainly going to help you. We're just gonna be going around, bringing it to the edges. You don't necessarily wanna have that falling off on the edge, but we can clean that up if it does. I will show you that in a moment. We're gonna get a nice even layer. And you'll notice at some points that we have cheesecake that's rolled up on the sides. Before you even start doing this, you can actually press this down just to make this nice and level. But this has set up, again, we're not really putting this into the oven that long. It'll stay nice and even for you if you don't overbake it. If it does overbake, no worries. Again, you can just press that down, any ridges. But we're looking for a nice flat surface, a nice little palette to work off of. So, a nice steady hand. And we're just bringing that palette knife off to make this into a nice level coating. You see it's very thin, and this jam that I'm using, it'll give you a nice flavoring on top of the vanilla. You want a nice combination between the two so you can taste the vanilla and taste the raspberry at the same time. Now you notice that it's kind of ragged edges along the side. What I'm gonna do is clean off my palette knife, nice and clean. I have a damp towel off to the side that's clean. We just go right along the edge and clean that up. Wiping off any excess. And off to this other side. That way, you have a nice clean edge here. If there's anything that's rolling up, just bring your palette knife in and draw it towards you or into the center rather than pushing it out, because we just cleaned that up. All right, so the raspberry jam is on there. We have a nice even coating. The next step is we're going to be cutting these into little squares. There's other ways you can do this. You can use a round cookie cutter. That's a little harder to do because then you have to make sure that it gets out of the cookie cutter. I like doing squares on this particular product because it's going to give you a nice clean cut. In order to get those clean cuts, we're going to use a knife, but I have hot water in this measuring cup. That's going to help us slice everything down. So with that, we'll be right back and I'll show you the next step. Okay, and we're back. So we're going to be slicing these up next. And again, we have a hot, wet knife that we're going to be using. And that's to heat up the knife, the metal of the knife. That's going to give us a nice, clean slice. And we're going to be cutting that or cleaning this off between each cut. I also have a roller to kind of give us a guideline when we're cutting this. Typically, when I'm making Petit Fours, I'm looking at 1 1/4 up to about 2 inches. So 1 1/4 inch by 1 1/4 inch, nice square. It gives you a nice 1 to 2 bite experience. So hot wet knife, I'm taking off a little bit of the excess and I'm marking my 1 1/4 and pulling back and slapping down. So what that does there at the end is I'm only using enough of the knife to cut. I don't want to use the entire blade. If I use the entire blade, that's going to draw too much of the cheesecake out. and it just gives you a very unclean cut. You have a lot of crumbs in there. So I'll demonstrate that again. Going up to 2.5 inches, just going down the ruler side. And you notice I'm cleaning it off each time, putting a little bit of water on and going up for my next cut. As you're working though, if you see any issues or problems, don't worry about it. All you have to do is just keep going. Remember, everybody can do this, and that's what I'm here to show you. All right, so I'm not going to go through all of this, but I want to show you the next cuts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my entire cutting board, and again, using my knife or my ruler as kind of a guide. It doesn't have to be used specifically or like very accurate. I can eye it up and we can just look at the squares that we're cutting. So we get these, cleaning off in between each, and then our next step is we're going to melt some white chocolate and do a decoration using a piping bag, and I'll show you that next. So with that, I will be right back. And we're back. So we have everything together, everything's cut up, and I'm just showing you that I'm placing these onto another tray, and we're giving some separation. Probably about an inch, 3/4 inch to an inch. We want some space because these are individual pastries, these petit fours, and we want to make sure that when we're doing a decoration that we're not messing up or piping anything on top of it onto another one, because it'll just not look that great. So we have these separated out, and obviously we have some left over here. You wouldn't want to decorate them all, but we're going to show you how I'm going to be putting this together with some white chocolate, and we're going to be using a piping bag like one of these. So we'll be looking at that next. What I'm going to do is melt the white chocolate, and this is a compound white chocolate. This is actually called almond bark. This will give you a nice presentation without having to do anything special about the chocolate. I am going to be using the microwave to melt this down. In the melting down process, I'm putting it in for maybe about 30 seconds initially, stirring this up, and then going back into the microwave probably about 10 to 15 seconds at each interval. You do not want to overheat white chocolate. If you do that, you're going to burn it and it'll get grainy, something we don't want in this point. So I'm going to be starting to work on that, and we'll be right back to go over the decoration. Okay, and we're back again. Next step is we're going to be piping white chocolate. So in order to do this, we need to make a little cone just like this. And this does take a little bit of practice, so I'm just gonna kind of review it right now. I will tell you it does take a little bit to kind of get this to where you have a very nice fine point here. What happens is we're going to be taking a half sheet of parchment paper like this, and we're going from opposite ends, from this angle to this angle, a nice diagonal, and we're going to be folding that in half. And if you can picture it, this nice straight line here, using my palette knife to give a nice crease, and I'm going to be taking that, I'm getting my palette knife nice and flat to the table and just creasing that out. You can use a scissors as well, but I find that the palette knife gives a nice straight cut, because if you can imagine, this is where your point on this cone is going to be. So again, give yourself some grace here, because this takes a while. I used to give this to my students when I was teaching professional baking and pastry as an assignment for homework. This was one of their first things they had to come and do. We would have them take a bunch of sheets of parchment paper back. You can make really small ones to really large ones. They would have to come in the next day with 50 of these. That would help us out through the semester. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this short angled side at the top and your long right here off to the side, and we're going to fold it over our hands and make a cone like this. Okay, right here is your point. You want to keep that nice and tight. So this little fulcrum that gets used with your thumb here, you can open that up or make that really tight. We want a very tight point. And then this side wraps around that, comes to the side. Again, maintaining that point, so we might have to pull this little tag that we just folded over up a little bit. And then we're locking this in place by giving a nice crease. And again, another one for an extra secure lock. So this is a larger one that I used from a half sheet of parchment paper. This is actually making a quarter sheet, this smaller one. And I'm going to use the smaller one because we're not going to be using too much to decorate our petit fours here. So putting that off to the side. And our white chocolate is just done in the microwave. And this is just heated enough where there's still a couple lumps in there, and I want to mix this around. Again, you do not want to overheat white chocolate, or chocolate for that matter. Remember, chocolate actually melts at your body temperature, so we want to get it just over body temperature for it to be a working consistency. And this is nice and melted that we can use for decoration. Now, we do have to fill our bag with this. When you're filling the bag, you do not want to go above halfway. If you go above halfway, it's going to spill over the top because we're going to be folding this over top of the white chocolate. So I take my cup and just pour a little bit in here. We're not going to need too much because what we're going to have is just a small amount coming out. And I'm scraping down the bottom, making sure that all of that chocolate is down towards the bottom. You have a crease in the back. This is where you folded or wrapped around your parchment paper. That needs to be in back and away from you. And I'm taking this, folding towards me, just like this, and then folding down away from that crease. If you go away from that crease, you're going to maintain this tight point, and that's what you want. If you fold it towards the crease, unfortunately this will start to open up on you further and further, and you'll get a messy end outcome from this. So if we keep it like this, nice and folded away, this is your piping bag. Okay? Again, you can review this over and over again, but it's going to take some practice. But what we can do, I'm going to show you one other thing that you can do if you don't want to go into this as far as decorating the petit fours. So, but we're going to use this for right now, and you'll have an opportunity to at least try. Now, I would take either a scissors or a knife and just cutting off the very, very tip. Like, this is what I cut off right there. It's just a tiny bit, so when we're piping, we get a nice stream of white chocolate, if you can see that. And that's good for what we want. So, left-handed or right-handed, either way, you want to keep this fold right here, this fold, nice and tight. And you're just putting your fingers over top, and I use my thumb as a pressure point. And for this, you can go into almost any design. You could be a free form, you can go all over the place, you can just do this type of a design on top, kind of like a Jackson Pollock, or in this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go on a diagonal. And I'm just starting out, it's going to be easier to do it faster than slower. You're gonna get nice straight lines this way. So if we're gonna be doing straight lines, I'm lifting up and going fast back and forth. I'm just kind of doing a nice line just like this. All right, we'll do this on all of these, and then I'm going to do it in an opposite direction to give yet another type of decoration. And when I'm piping, you'll notice that I'm going past the surface area. That'll allow any excess to drop down either off to the sides or onto the parchment paper. And you'll notice this is why we actually had the separation between them, because it gives me space in order to do that. Okay, so that's one type of decoration. What I'm going to do is turn this 45 or 90-degree angle. I'm going to retighten my bag. So I used about this much of the chocolate. I'm just gonna fold this over once, and I have another go around that I can go. So again, doing the same thing, cutting it in half and going the opposite direction. So this gives you a nice, pretty design, very precise design that you can utilize for your Petit Fours. And we'll finish this up. And what we're gonna do next is plate this up, and then we're gonna have somebody try these. Like I said in my first episode, I don't like to be the chef that wants to go on there and try my own food. Of course, I'm going to tell you that it's really good. I want somebody else to try this to let them know that it tastes good. So with that, we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. So now we're going to be at the point where we are going to plate these Petit Fours up. Everything has been set up. The chocolate, we want to make sure that when you're pulling up, sometimes there are little pieces that are just hanging off. We can just knock those down with the palette knife and place them onto the plate. Now you can do this in a couple of ways, like I'm putting this onto an individual place to taste, but there's also that you can put this on a tray in lines and make a really nice display. But up to 3 or 4 per person is typically a good serving size, although they might be too good that you might be wanting some more as well. But like I said before, I'm the type of chef that I don't want to say that I like something, so I like to have somebody on here so they can taste it to let us know how it is. So I have a good friend here, Reed, if you want to come on here, and I want you to try the Petit Fours. This is Reed, and this is a vanilla bean cheesecake with a raspberry and a white chocolate decoration. So please try it. You took the largest one.
It was the closest one.
What do you think?
Will you marry me? This is awesome.
And I've just been proposed to, so this is good.
so good. So
it's very creamy. So the way that it's been put together is there's no air that's incorporated into this, right? So that keeps it very nice and dense with just a thin layer of that raspberry. And you can use different ones, raspberry, strawberry, blueberry, whatever you feel is good for you and for the palate.
It's like a combination of dense and light.
Good.
And great flavors.
Absolutely. Great. Awesome. Okay, so there you have it. It's one of the best tasting cheesecakes out there. I got proposed to by a married man, so this is good. So thank you for watching. This is one of the highlights of what I get to do is Petit Fours. This is something that I really like to put together. So I'm glad that you were able to join us for Sweet Precision. Make sure that you follow me as a pastry chef on Instagram and Facebook at Benjamin Bishop Pastry Chef. I also do have a website where you can follow me and learn more about these recipes at benjaminbishoppastrychef.com. So again, thank you again for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.